In my immediate environment, I often pay attention to insignificant problems that are rooted from human nature. I like to look for those inconspicuous actions that essentially determine who people are. I like to observe how they change, not for better or worse, but change on a level that does not affect the environment. At this moment, psychologists or those interested in psychology as a hobby will probably criticize me for making such a ridiculous statement. After all, it is known that every change in one's behavior or decision, even the smallest and imperceptible one, affects everything around. That is correct. I, however, have noticed a condition. It is worth noting that I am no Nobel-worthy discoverer, and most of those that will read what I am writing now have already made such discoveries. I am not the first, that is given, but I just wanted to share my observations. Everyone has their point of view, and this one will be mine. Well, I am fascinated by people who walk. Yes, they just go. They do not know why, where they are going, or after whom. They do not know because they do not want to know. All they know is that it is the right thing to do, and they do not have an opinion of their own because it is more convenient for them. What scares me the most is that this is not even conformity. They are human beings, but human beings have a will, after all, or vestiges of one. I get that they work following orders to pay their bills and so on, since there are certain activities and tasks in life that we just have to do. Some people work like robots, but they have private passions, dreams, and things that they try to achieve. Some succeed immediately, while others fail over the years and still decide to invest everything that they have in order to get the honor of self-fulfillment. I do not know how to put this issue, and I dare to venture a statement that these people, the latter, are a kind of artificial intelligence. Strange, right? You are probably wondering, why am I making such irrational statements? At first glance, there is not a slightest connection between one and the other, I must admit it. I once had the idea to change my perspective on everything that I see and know. Before I try to describe what is in my head, I have to give you a picture of one of the personality types. I am no expert. I do not know professional terminology. Therefore, I am not going to force you into any nice-sounding, complicated expressions. Let's go back to the concept of an artificial intelligence hidden in a living person. I will use trivial examples that will seem devoid of any maturity, as to try to juxtapose human and artificial intelligence behavior at the same time. Imagine that there is a man A. Gender does not matter. Let us call him Man A. A good virtual equivalent as a representative of artificial intelligence will be an example of an old strategy game that I like to play, as people say. Man A goes to work, but he must meet some conditions to do this. First, he must wake up. Second, apart from some other activities, he will most likely get into his car, start the engine, and drive away. In this one sentence, there are plenty conditions to fulfill in order to make his plan work. For instance, if we take the action of getting up, there has to be a trigger, an alarm clock. There are conditions for the alarm to ring, like setting the correct time and the alarm, and, most importantly, Manet must have a device with an alarm function to make sure to trigger this reaction. In the game, I had to meet certain conditions to create a unit. This was a strategy game, and so each knight had to be given an equipment that had to be created in various buildings, with the appropriate raw materials from the appropriate industrial buildings. Someone could ask, what is the connection? I am pointing at someone obvious that everybody knows because everyone goes through the same thing every day. And here is the first issue, the real world. Yes, everyone is right here, but this is only the first perspective, which limits us to develop very simple thinking, like money, store, car, house, fridge. Despite such thinking, we can already see some features that bring the action of artificial intelligence closer to taking the action of a living human, or worse, vice versa. Each person has to consider this individually. I will add here one more issue related to errors. When a program encounters a wrong entry in a line of code, a malfunction or a crash can be caused. So, what would happen to man A if, for example, his car breaks down on the way to work, or he is involved in a traffic collision? This situation presents us a possibility of infinite events that can affect others, like man B, C, D, and so on. The butterfly effect, in short, is a component of a poorly written code. To conclude, I will ask a question. How thin is the line between reality and the matrix? Maybe that is enough on this topic, but I just wanted to share my vision about how our world works and how we, as living beings, are being guided by something that we can only see if we change our perspective. I will now present the view from the other side. I have already mentioned that there are people who follow the crowd for the sake of the idea, who are empty and have no convictions, who lack their own I. My first perspective compares them to artificial intelligence, while the second one will be empathetic. I often ask myself, why do these people act the way they do? Is there something behind their seemingly indifferent behavior? Well, there is. I figured this after noticing similar signs of neutrality in my life. Upon closer observation, I can see this neutrality in myself, but I observe people and I see this conflict between my consciousness towards actions taken and social interaction. That introduction is enough, although I could include more examples and observations. During a period of time, I was thinking about creating a brilliant plan to break me out of this grey, endless routine. While cutting myself off from my surroundings, I became a puppet. I became Man A. I was doing everything that I was trying to fight against, and, by being closed off from the world, I forgot about many tasks I had completed, as if I had set out to do them, and never completed them. Emptiness. All in all, this situation was still nothing strange or bad, but, upon observing myself, I began to get caught up in these seemingly insignificant entities. If during this intense thinking I was absent-minded, I started thinking that maybe there are others with the same affliction and outstanding individuals who are hidden from the world. Perhaps they can think of something ingenious to greatly benefit society, but they could lack the trigger. Or the opposite could also be true. Perhaps their thoughts are not so colorful after all, and they seem friendly while planning how to kill everyone who annoys them. You can be irritated by anything, even just your appearance. In today's sick society, you often die for how you look, and I do not even mean skin color. For a long time, I was guided by this very perspective while trying to determine what drives this kind of people. I felt so strongly about it that I started imagining myself muttering, hurting, insulting. At first, these imaginary situations that I created were small. I would simply walk up to someone and punch them in the nose with my fist, just like that. Or I hit someone with something hard on the limbs to break them, or hitting them in the head so they lose consciousness. I will admit that I had a great time. No one was getting hurt because it was only my imagination, but this fun consumed me to a much greater extent than I would have expected. Eventually, I became Man A. I followed others without sharing my own opinions or criticizing what I considered to be was wrong, just because I did not have time to do so. I planned murders in my head at every spare moment I had, each one being more elaborate than the last. I started focusing on details, creating descriptions like those you can find in detective books, and this motivated me to sit down at the keyboard and start writing. However, before I planned to start writing my piece, I wanted to share with you these observations. After more time, I have found that overusing other perspectives does not any good to our psyche, but I maintain the belief that sometimes we should change our perspectives to get a better, more reliable assessment of the situation. Nevertheless, I think that everyone should return to their original plane of perception after they get their answer. Everyone, since our psyche would not be able to bear the weight of carrying two perspectives for too long. You need to balance them smoothly, moving from one to the other, from the second to the third, while being able to always return to the first one. Why am I mentioning this? You see, my murder planning started to scare me. I was getting out of control. Imagine having a normal conversation with someone that you like and respect, and the conversation flows smoothly without any negative emotions. Our interlocutor is engaged and expresses willingness to continue the conversation when, despite our will, bloody images come to mind, sticking a pen in their eye, pushing them into a wall, attacking their teeth with our elbow, or whatever else you can think of. Yesterday, I passed an elderly lady on the sidewalk as I was walking through town, and I noticed that she was supporting herself with a cane. The automatic thought that came to my mind was to kick her off her support. In my mind, I saw her was falling and screaming in terror. And another situation occurred in a store when a nice saleswoman was giving me change, and I imagined hitting her on the head with a glass bottle. She would lose consciousness as blood comes out from under her head. This sent shivers down my spine. The same thing happened at work. The manager complimented me for doing a difficult task, and I felt like punching him in the face for that. Coming home, I saw my neighbor's 10-year-old son playing in his yard, and my mind immediately presented me with a situation where I would walk up to him and start insulting him with a set of words that he probably does not even know yet. Later, I saw his father nailing a wooden gazebo with a hammer, and I could see in my mind's eye how I snatched the hammer out of his hand and hit his knee with it, walk over to his car, and hurl the tool at the windshield. I am scared. I do not know what to do with myself, but I want to hurt someone. I want to hurt people who like me and destroy their material goods. Sometimes, I get a weird cramp in my hands as something, like my mind, influences my thoughts and starts taking control of my body. I am able to stop it at the last moment, but I do not know how long I will be able to keep my behavior in check. Today, I met a beautiful girl with long and healthy chestnut hair, blowing gracefully in the morning breeze. She had a wonderful smile as she talked on the phone, and she was standing right in front of me, on the other side of the pedestrian crossing. And everything pleasant must be pushed out of my head and replaced with the bad, the things I try to fight against. My imagination was glowing to the point that I felt a strange headache as my heart was pounding on my chest and my muscles alternated between strange spasms and reflexes. I was walking in an imaginary reality behind a chestnut ideal. I saw her turn into a narrow alley between buildings, and then I grabbed her mouth, overlapping her from behind. She was panicking, trying to scream, but my hand squeezed her mouth too hard. I could feel her tears falling, one after another, touching on my skin at a rapid pace. Eventually, they turned into continuous streams. I pushed her against the wall and punched her in the face, just hard enough for her to lose consciousness. The subsequent scene after she woke up looked disturbing. She was tied, sitting on an old wooden chair in the office of some abandoned factory, and her mouth was gagged. She tried to get up, fidgeting nervously on the old piece of furniture with streams of tears decorating her face, but her attempts to call for help were futile. I looked at her with compassion. I felt sorry for her. She may have expected what was in store for her. Her jeans pants were lying on the floor about a meter away from her. I walked over to her, squatted down, and looked into her pretty blue eyes that were glistening with tears. I opened her legs, pulled a folding knife out of my pants, and sunk the blade into her right thigh, making an incision from top to bottom slowly as her blood started flowing intensely. The incision was about 10 centimeters long. I pulled the blade out and sunk it again next to the earlier wound. A lot of blood was already running down her legs, over the chair. I could hear the rats approaching and smelling the sweat, but it was not over yet, so I made one more cut and stopped. I stopped on that leg. 3 more cut wounds appeared on her left thigh. The beautiful girl was sobbing so intensely that she had trouble getting air. She was choking from pain, terror, and who knows what else. I tried to calm her down, but I did not use any words. Instead, I stroked her soft and fragrant hair, grabbed her gently by her bound hands, and kissed her forehead. The bleeding was severe, and I knew I did not have much time left. The knife went towards her neck, but it did not hurt her. My left hand caught her blouse so that it did not come in contact with her body, and the blade glided easily down the white fabric. I unbuttoned 2 pieces of clothing and realized that she cared about her appearance because of the impressive exposed abdominal muscles. She had 0 body fat, just to be admired. However, I did not have time to focus on her appearance. The blade could not be stopped. I drove it into the left side of her abdomen, slowly dragging it to the other side with a slow and precise motion between the sculpted muscles. In the initial cut, I think that I encountered a rib, so I had to reduce the depth. After that, she immediately lost consciousness. Blood was everywhere, and the rats started climbing over her to slowly make their way to places where even before there was solid skin tissue. My vision snapped, and I had just arrived at my house, unaware of why my hands were red and why I could smell that distinctive metallic scent. Everything was sticky. I walked over to the sink and looked in the mirror before pulling folding knife out of my pocket with the same color of my hands. It occurred to me that I had lost my perspective. It was too late for normalcy to return to me now. I am moving out to a place safe for others, later today. I will just give you a piece of advice. Avoid blind people, because they see much more than those who reach beyond the horizon with their eyes. They do not have to stand out, they do not have to be dressed in white, but just like them, they are everywhere. Excuse me, someone just knocked on the door.